What is up, fellow tubers? It's that time of year again. That time when we watch a whole lot of press conferences and glorified commercials to see what latest crops from this industry are going to destroy our wallets. And if you thought you were safe because the old guard chickened out, let me tell you, there are a lot of really cool people from various corners of this industry who not only are picking up the slack in E3's absence, but I personally just realized they were doing it throughout the whole pandemic. So sit back with some snacks or your beverage of choice and press play. To be entirely honest, I don't really have anything meaningful to contribute to this conversation. Resident Evil isn't my cup of tea, but I know objectively this is such a low-hanging fruit for Capcom to remake that it makes even me groan with exasperation. Playing as a small animal like a cat is one of those exact premises for a game I've contemplated myself for many years. What makes me iffy on the whole concept is the maybe post-apocalyptic cyberpunk world where everyone including said cat has screens attached to their bodies. But I'm definitely interested. Look at him, he's so cute. Okay, real talk. Trying to do a single command input for Blanca for like an hour in Street Fighter IV is kind of the watershed moment where I gave this genre a chance and bounced off hard. So seeing Street Fighter VI with simple inputs, a city you can explore outside of fights, and a whole lot of flash to season that substance has me impressed and cautiously optimistic. Listen, I just finished Final Fantasy VII last year. I'm so far behind with this franchise, Final Fantasy XVIII will have come out before I get to this. But Final Fantasy X is still my favorite entry in the series, in no small part because of the emphasis on the summons. And seeing them playable again is one of the coolest things revealed at this Summer Games Fest. Dang, did they finally fix Colonial Marines? I appreciate the artsiness of this whole thing, but I can't tell what's going on, what the gameplay is, or what the story is. I have very specific tastes when it comes to FPS games. And at first, this game looked like another Doom clone, where firing and moving constantly is more important than precision and setting up traps. But every new cut showed off several different ways to approach a fight, and it really won me over by the end. Add this to the list. Baker vs. Clark is a cool bullet point and all, but setting this in space isn't going to distract me from how utterly tired of zombies I am. Dude, I watch half these conferences after dark. I did not need that jump scare. I am so done with the MCU at this point. And I genuinely would rather see another Shazam movie. But do we really need a Black Adam origin in the modern world? Fall Guys is free to play. Neat. This cinematic trailer was really cool, and I'm always happy to see devs break away from corporations that have been burying their creativity in industry garbage. But as a man more eloquent than I once said, no game, no hype, those is the rules. Truman Show meets The Running Man. I don't really have anything insightful to say about this, because like those movies, this scenario has grown increasingly less novel over the decades as it edges towards actually happening. When did Goat Sim 2 happen? Okay, sure, they actually went with that kind of joke. I guess I shouldn't be surprised. Aesthetically, Midnight Suns is fairly off-putting to me. I'm not really into the whole demons with horns kind of deal. But Marvel XCOM is a premise strong enough to overlook that, and at least keep an eye on it. Yo, 6-player TMNT, shut up and take my money. One Piece is a franchise that will absolutely do great as an RPG, but I do find it weird that they were revealing all the Straw Hats like the roster of a fighting game. Was it to pinpoint when this could have taken place in the franchise? Or will they do another trailer with character reveals that have a bit more meaning to them? Because that would be pretty cool. I have been watching E3 for nearly 20 years now, so only now realizing that Tim Schafer has been running his own mini-conference for half that time feels like I missed out. Oh well, more time interfacing directly with developers during this PR extravaganza is always a good thing. Congrats on 10 years of this, Tim. This is such a crazy minimalist art style. I'm really digging it. And the message is something we should all take to heart. If only the gameplay had more meat to it. What does it say about me that I see a train with giant spider legs and a demented clown face and feel, yeah, this is a survival horror game for me? There's a part of me that feels like making a game specifically set in an escape room is missing the point, considering the novelty of escape rooms is taking video game puzzle mechanics and simulating in the real world without spending theme park tier money to create that scenario. Having said that, in this case it looks like reinserting the premise back into video games is affording the devs with opportunities that wouldn't be viable in the real world. While setting it in an academy does provide the illusion of using this to learn how to better interact with escape rooms in the real world. So, cool. Oh yes, another OCD game. Huzzah! Honestly, there were so many management, building, farm, life sims, that by the end of this Summer Games Fest, it was impossible to remember them all. Bear and Breakfast shows up here, mostly because I think the title is hilarious, and because the random horror element teased at the end of the trailer was unnecessary. Sometimes it's nice to just float down the river of life and look for those bare necessities. Management Sim number 2, explicitly described as Stardew Valley in a prehistoric age. If you really want wholesome, living off the land away from modern life, there's few better scenarios, I suppose. Though, now that this is here, I demand to know where Wandering Village is. I've seen a lot of games where you can play as or can only see your character's shadow, but I don't remember ever seeing one where your character can only stand on shadows, which appeals to the part of me that likes to stand only on the painted part of the crosswalk. Why is there a Pet Cemetery point-and-click adventure game where you Frankenstein a friend for yourself? Man, they've really lost the plot, haven't they? Not that I care about the lore all that much, but wasn't them still living in their normal pre-apocalypse lives all just a dream at the end of the last direct? From what little I know of my FPS history, this looks like a literal old-school Doom clone with modern graphics. And while I probably won't play it, it's one of those things that's nice to look at.
Soon Devolver Digital Inc. will become the sole arbiter of all video games and everything that goes along with it. A lone, single mega platform with total and unstoppable absolute command over everything.
So what is the problem?
I know this scenario is horrifying and depressingly believable at this point, with everything Disney has done for the last 10 to 15 years, and now with Microsoft buying up half the Western game developers. But not gonna lie, I'm with Boss Lady. We can do a lot worse than Devolver Digital being in charge. This already looked decent when it was another hand-drawn action-adventure like Legend of Right. But when they jumped out of the page into 3D bedroom space, I was all on board. Add this to the list. Come on, Devolver, if you're going to go full never-ending story, you need to go bigger than an orbital shot of an explosion. At least rewrite all the other companies' logos in Devolver Digital font or something.
Speak, friend, and enter.
There's not enough gameplay to get a full picture of all the things you can do in this. But if it comes even halfway to the Dwarf Fortress in 3D, set in Middle-earth I'm imagining, this could end up being one of the best games shown at Summer Games Fest 2022. Pacific Rim mechs scaled down for realistically sized frogs? Okay. In all seriousness, this game looks like it's taking the play as anything in the universe premise and using it to make some really cool movement tech. Definitely an exploration game to look out for. Considering the prices of actually building a PC at this time, yeah, I can see the appeal of building a PC virtually. Considering most kids can type better than I can, I doubt we need this for educational purposes the way some of these used to be. That doesn't mean there isn't fun still to be had with this niche of gameplay, and this one looks fairly robust. Yet another management sim. This one we build to clean everything up, including what we built to do the cleaning. This reverse downwell style game is the only thing I want to play from this direct, and I have to have a Netflix account to play it. Why? Honestly, I didn't get a lot out of this showcase, but I will admit the running count of how many times Jeff and Mary say point B was amusing.
That's like the plural of a point.
I feel like Point B must be the character. I mean, it's got a hat and stuff.
Using turn-based combat as a means of working through relationships is an amazing example of the many ways you can add texture and storytelling to turn-based combat that elevate it beyond just mashing A every turn. Post-apocalyptic Jungle Book. Fair enough. I don't have a lot of personal interest in this one, but a puzzle cooking game exploring cultural roots stood out enough that I felt it was worth mentioning. Every time I see this, I feel a little disappointed. The premise of actual real-world movies involving one specific actress that were filmed but were never distributed for mysterious reasons is so compelling it demands to be utilized somehow. I'm just not seeing the appeal of this hunting the background gameplay loop. It's still really cool that it got made, and I hope it finds an audience.
Kick it off tough. The Guerrilla Collective was created because everything was fragmented in terms of the press and event organization during the zombie apocalypse of 2020. So we decided to come together, organize, and deploy showcases with our fellow independent hustlers in the game industry, and add some flavor and style to the industry to give folks a creative jolt during the chaos that was ensuing.
Yo, indie devs supporting each other in the midst of the pandemic. How am I just now realizing this is a thing? I really like these guys personality-wise too, and appreciate how they try to group genres and styles of games into sections. Here's another weird one to add to the management sim pile. This one has aliens, anti-colonial undertones, and deck building. I know Call of Duty and a few other franchises have already tackled this, but shooters, specifically where humans are using guns, in Zero Gravity, are fairly rare. So if you're bored of traditional shooting conventions, this may be onto something. As someone who spent high school being homeschooled, this doesn't hit the same for me, but I still absolutely get why running around a mostly abandoned school while defending yourself from a demented teacher could be either cathartic or terrifying enough to make a great game. PT with time travel shenanigans to wrinkle our brains. I've been more interested in skate sports since I really started watching the Olympics, to the point that I started looking into what games are available for the genre. So I guess it's a perfect timing for this to come out. Yet another Pokemon clone. This one is 90s themed. Answering the question of whether John Wick would kill more efficiently if he was the pencil. Yo, Arkanoid is the next arcade battle royale? I need to get in on that action. Mechanically, this looks like a pretty run-of-the-mill Metroidvania, but the magical girl outfit changes and hugging a literal teddy bear to ward off the darkness are such novel touches, I definitely want to see more. At last! Someone finally took a cue from Thousand Year Door's appealing to the audience mechanic. I always said you could make a whole game out of the Glitz Pit, and here it is. Bringing in a whole bunch of real-life wrestling personalities will probably make this a cult classic. I really love these games where you build poker hands to perform attacks, because in addition to all the pluses of being an RPG, you get all the fun of hand management without being stuck with one hand as poker tends to go. Add another one to the list. I really wish there was more to talk about here, because as a recreation of what we've all imagined pixel-era Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest was, this looks amazing. It just doesn't have anything else beyond that to stay in your mind. Symphony of the War is in the same boat, but it has the benefit of sheer scale. Fire Emblem taken to the point that a single map unit is using a group of characters as big as an Advance Wars unit, with far less homogenized characters that each have important roles and positions, is the kind of insanity that will probably be memorable on its own. After watching this trailer a few times, I still can't work out just how deep the mechanics of spells and secrets will go, but it might just satisfy my desire for a Hogwarts game without having to deal with the drama surrounding the setting and fan base of Harry Potter. This is just a funny premise. I don't have anything else to say. Here's a build the adventure game for the lot of you still mourning the ending of Amphibia. I wasn't really thinking about it until I saw this, but I'm really looking forward to more games emulating this era of low-poly PS1 and N64 games. All the descriptions and marketing surrounding this game keep harping on the post-climate change apocalypse, but the actual gameplay seems pretty chill, and I can see the appeal of building a sanctuary in the rooftops of abandoned skyscraper. Like I said, management sims of all types. Now we've got an indoor gardening game that has surprisingly robust non-plant decoration options. Having gradually picked up Japanese vocabulary and pronunciation from watching anime, a lighthearted adventure exploration game that helps the player learn Japanese sounds like a fun way to expand that skill set, even if I should really be doubling down on my Mexican heritage and learn Spanish first. A cynical person might be inclined to read the title of this direct as pretentious, but the way they constantly support devs up to generating funding to cover aspects of running a business that can induce so much stress, took a moment every few entries to let the viewer catch their breath, and commissioned an adorable animated story to play throughout the direct with music catchier and more uplifting than anything I heard in an actual game this year. Yeah, this direct was in fact wholesome. Not a lot to say here. Ratatouille the game, but you replace the rat with a more health code friendly teddy bear. We really need more art that involves anthropomorphizing musical notation. Kiki's Delivery Service as a 3D platformer. Yep, that sounds legit. Ditto for The Borrowers themed delivery platformer.
Adorable chicken on an adventure to find the answer to the question, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Realistically, every RPG is a personality test, and a game giving the player some explicit formulaic descriptor based on how they played shouldn't be that big a deal. But I will admit I'm curious to see how it plays out. There are those that say modern Paper Mario is fine, and that Origami King was the best in the series. I am not one of those people. Bring on as many games inspired by classic Paper Mario as you can, because I am done with Tanabe's nonsense. Though I have to admit, I'm not entirely sure where the board game part fits into this whole thing. Of all the management sims, this one might be the trippiest and most complex. Cloning yourself, performing certain actions to create extreme self-contained relay system sounds amazing and brain-twisting. I've been seeing this art style more and more often of 2D characters being used for 3D platformers, and it makes me really wonder why jumping in all of the Paper Mario games feels so stiff, because clearly it's not a limitation of the aesthetic. Rant aside, this looks like another solid 3D platformer. Literally folding space to travel to other locations. Yeah, that sounds cool. Hold up a minute. You mean to tell me there's a painting sim that is also a merchant sim to sell said art in the game's world, and I'm just now hearing about this? This is amazing. This one looks like it's following the Mario and Luigi games more than the Paper Mario ones, but it still looks like a solid RPG. Kaiju Dating Sim. Nuff said. This survival sim teaches you real-life herbs and mushrooms. See, Mom? This one's educational. Considering how many of these farm sims are trying to emulate the tranquil aspects of rural life, I'm actually surprised there hasn't been a literal cowboy-themed one until now. Looks good, though I have to admit, there might be a little too much reddish-brown for my tastes. It's not often these crafting sims get into the minutiae of what they're being used for. Having to actually diagnose symptoms before crafting the correct treatment sounds really cool. Though I admit I might be a bit too squeamish to try it out myself. Ooh, a Treasure Island themed survival sim that also has a cute dog. I could go for this. Another Harry Potter clone that I can't quite work out how deep the gameplay goes. Guess I'll just have to wait for more details.
Fill the world with blocks. And don't forget to clean up the mess.
Considering this girl has major stalker vibes, I'm especially worried this game goes the Doki Doki Literature Club route. But since it is the Wholesome Games Direct, it might just be a sweet pre-romance coming-of-age game with time-based puzzles. In which case, neat. Sometimes it's all in the art style. There have absolutely been farm sims with witches, pumpkins, and monsters before. But the art style sells this game as the Halloween-themed farm sim. Not entirely sure why they went with a realistic mouse when they have this cartoonish spirit hanging about, but it looks like a fun collectathon game. I'd chalk this one down to art style as well, but with such a dizzying array of locations and the ability to build buildings, this might be the most mechanically open farming sim of the year. But it cannot be the best, because Wandering Village is back! Look at this! You can pet the dinosaur! If Time on Frog Island was for the Amphibia fans, this one's for the Gravity Falls fans. Now, if we could just get another game for the DuckTales fans, that would be great. At first, I thought this was a Captain Toad type game because of the art style and orientation. But the tracks seem to indicate it's a routing-based puzzle game, which is also fun. The hamsters are just the icing on the cake. Do I play this or Skatebird, I wonder? Nintendo, take notes for when you finally make an Ice Climber sequel. I know other platformers like Mario specifically have used the wrap around the square block gravity concept before. But the clay art style, coupled with the puzzle platformer aspect, reminds me of Elo Milo, of all things. And we'll end the Wholesome Direct on a flower growing sim that bafflingly uses the monochrome of old school LCD games.
Red's beloved Witcher trilogy, where I voice the original bath-taking monster slayer, Geralt of Rivia. Now we've got a great show for you.
The hosts of these shows range from corporate faces to big names in the industry to fun, personal indie devs. But I gotta admit, putting Geralt and Yennefer from The Witcher together, occasionally role-playing, might be the best host of the show. Dude, I don't do horror. So when you put literal floating sheet ghosts into a PT-like game, you're setting me up for some nightmares. And yet, like the proverbial train wreck, I can't look away because I don't think anyone else has done the floating sheets concept so effectively, and I am morbidly intrigued by where this is going. I've kind of settled on which buildy sims I want to play from the lineup at this point. But this one comes darn close to changing my mind with its Prince of Persia aesthetic. From the looks of things, this appears to be open enough to be classified more as an arena fighter than a traditional 3D fighter, but it's very footsie focused, which certainly looks cool. Lately, and especially during this Summer Games Fest, I feel like we've seen quite a few old school Doom clones. Contrarily, this looks like a first-person shooter that's a clone of Doom 2016, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. This looks like someone just took Metal Gear Revengeance and cut the Metal Gear license out of it, which is not really a bad thing. So you took Rocket League and replaced soccer with golf. Fair enough. Let me get this straight. In the alternate universe, where humanity invested more resources into mastering time rather than space a la Half-Life and Portal, we weren't invaded by aliens, but the corporate infrastructure has spread all the way to the moon, and we're so screwed up as a civilization, GLaDOS is actually our best friend. This is gonna be wild, isn't it? Dude, I can't even put together a prototype for a platformer in a year, and I'm living a life relatively free of worry. Mad respect for these Ukrainian devs chasing their dreams under these conditions. It's a puzzle-solving adventure game, so I'm not all that into it, but I like the design for Clef and the Dragon. Mark Twain always said, write what you know. It's tragic that these people have to live through these circumstances, but if you can use those experiences to tell a story and burn life's house down with the lemons, all the more power to them. Anime furry is more aesthetic than genre, but I really do wonder why there are so many noir-type stories that have furries as a backdrop. It's not a complete list of management sims until you have a Mars terraforming game. I don't really have anything to say about this one. It just looks like one of the best Souls-likes of the fest. Orcs is just a bonkers mix of Carcassonne's land tile matching and tower defense mechanics. Every time I watch The Muppets, I think to myself, how cool a game where you're playing one or all of the acts would be. There's not enough gameplay here to really see if it offers what I'm looking for, but I hope it goes well. I can't quite work out how to classify this game. The katana mechanics feel hack and slash or even character action-y, but the shooting is far closer to a fully functional FPS than those types of games tend to offer. Looks good either way. I take it back. This is the best Souls-like of the entire Summer Games Fest, garnishing Symphony of the Night's stellar design premises with flashy, wide-hitting combos and Mortal Kombat finishers looks dope. Tower defense on a boat. Is Mythbusters still happening? I mean, I really love those guys and whatnot, but it seems a bit late for this. Not to mention the question of what the player will actually be doing. Listen, we need more therapy bots in all industries, especially gaming. But did Firewatch really need to get creepier and more ominous? I don't know how to feel about this one. It's very clearly the best designs for a 3D Pokemon clone yet, and I really dig the idea of using sandbox and survival mechanics to not only have the Pokemon interact with the world to the degree that they do in the anime, but circumvent the progression problems inherent to the old HM system. I'm just really uncomfortable about a hardcore anti-poaching storyline where Pokemon use guns like guerrilla freedom fighters. Redfall still looks cool. Glad it's only a localized apocalypse and the overall gameplay looks fun, but I didn't see anything that wowed me specifically. Alright, Silksong fans, you can stop asking for it, it's here. Loving the extra mobility and the fact that Hornet has 2 separate meters related to the needle and the thread. It's absolutely going to be worth the wait for this Hollow Knight sequel, however long that continues to be. Rick and Morty is like Family Guy or South Park. You can only have so much of it at a time or you go insane. But we could do with more exotic weapons and shooters, and you don't get more exotic than literally live ammo. And this reminds me in a good way of the talking bullets from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This does nothing for me personally, because I'm most interested in the Riot games that aren't coming to the pass, i.e. Lich King and Project L. But getting all skins free as part of the pass is a steal. Games Pass isn't just worth it, it is by far the biggest bang for your buck proposition in gaming at this point. Now, I don't really have a comment, I just thought this was amusing. Every time Forza announces a new novelty mode, I get closer to buying one of these games. One day there's going to be a nuts and bolts tie-in or something, and I'll have to play it. Lots of cool features in this one. Mobility, flintlock guns for some short-range kick, and a furry companion. It's just that anytime mortals versus gods is the premise, you inevitably run into more angst than I'm willing to put up with. Once again, I feel sorry that Mojang can't branch out into new genres without falling back on the Minecraft IP. but I have to admit there is some appeal to a Minecraft game with larger scale building and warfare. I'm putting this one here mostly because my brother likes mechs. Otherwise, this looks like a fairly standard farming sim with subtle tongue-in-cheek commentary about over-industrialization. Lovecraftian Metroidvania. Okay. This is an example of how early access undermines full release announcements. Everybody who's interested in this is already playing it, and nothing you show off in this trailer will top the arachnophobia accessibility options as far as advertising it for new people. First of all, I'm getting some major dark Peter Pan or Dishonored's Outsider vibes from this narration, which is really cool in and of itself. But as I was watching these showcases, I was thinking the only game type I don't have a good entry for yet is Climby Stealth. And here this comes along with the ability to move through shadows, perform silent takedowns, and generally move around competently with stealth. I think we have it covered now. Alice in Wonderland action-adventure, not exactly new, but the voxel aesthetic is neat. So Team Ninja comes out here with some cutscenes that should receive a no game, no hype. But then Lubu shows up, and it begs the question, is this a Dynasty Warriors character action game? Persona comes to Game Pass. For those in my audience who don't follow the industry regularly or don't even know much about video games, Persona has been exclusive to Sony for a long time. Even when a Persona character got into Smash Bros., the Switch still hasn't gotten any Persona games. So the fact that Microsoft, Sony's direct competitor, got Persona on their console, this is the part of the show where they should have just walked on stage and dropped a mic. And they still haven't shown off Starfield at this point in the conference. Listen, no game, no hype. But for better or worse, Hideo Kojima is making a cloud-based game that he's dreamed of making for years. It doesn't matter if it's good, it will be the talk of the industry for years. The nicest thing I can say about Starfield is that it feels like Mass Effect, but with all the buildy gameplay and open world aspects I didn't get when I first played Mass Effect. Unfortunately, No Man's Sky already exists, and Mass Effect convinced me that I really don't like the sterile, barren reality of exploring planets in space. Regardless, it looks better than Fallout 76. I like the fact that you can build your ship, and there's plenty more additional mechanics that will make Elder Scrolls 6 potentially really good when it finally comes out. I was wondering how they were going to hand-wave that Day 9 and everyone else was still alive. Parallel universes makes as much sense as anything, though I got to admit I'm disappointed they didn't go with a story as complex or built up as DevBot again. Clea makes some really good games, from Don't Starve to Mark of the Ninja. I'm not sure how I feel about a beat-em-up that appears to be using Don't Starve's engine, but these guys have earned the benefit of the doubt. XCOM with magic. Neat. I've never been big on PvP, but I have to admit that Assassin's Creed 3's pretending to be an NPC multiplayer still sounds really cool in theory, so I'm glad something like that is being made. Yes, more crafting games with robust mercantile systems. A man can only play Reciteer for a few thousand hours before he longs for more. Dude! Remastering System Shock with modern graphics and physics looks amazing. More of this, and less Last of Us remake, please. Considering the main problem I have with cyberpunk stories is that they're all doom and gloom about dystopian futures and tearing down the establishment, it's nice to have one that is just a peaceful management sim set in a future that, yes, is rough around the edges, but it's still just life as we know it with future tech. So is this thousands of Tyranids deal like the 1000 Heartless situation in Kingdom Hearts? Because I'm still not over that, you know. Still cool that they're actually making a sequel to this, though. Considering how much rose-tinted glasses people have for GoldenEye, I really have to wonder what took so long for this thing to get made. I definitely know people who will be excited for this. I'm still not entirely sure whether this is a conspiracy story or an exploration story, but the idea of a climby game with low gravity has some real potential. This is a really interesting idea for a city building game. But I'm sorry, I can't look at those steep inclines and not have haunting visions of sliding right off the edge of the world. No thanks. So let me get this straight. Not only are you a solid-looking fantasy action game with flying transformations, but you're a ability sandbox with the ability to craft walls and panels instead of blocks, as well as big set pieces like statues. Shut up and take my money. I have yet to play the Thief games, but I've heard nothing but good things. Meanwhile, as cool as I think Resident Evil 4's inventory system is, I draw a hard line at stories about parasites. This looks to combine the best of those two games without retaining the bad. I think I might need to add this to the list. Considering a narrator who gains sentience inside of a book or video is one of my storytelling goals as a creator, this game definitely has my attention. Icarus still looks great, but I don't think there's anything new here except giant worms. Kind of disappointing considering how good Frozen Flame looks, but it still looks good. Another Gravity Falls type deal. This one allegedly has full minigames to break up the puzzles, but I don't think I saw any. I really like tile placing games, and this one looks cool, but I still can't figure out what the goal is. I like the designs of these cartoony horseshoe magnets acting as these characters' legs. I especially like the co-op coordination that riding on top of each other presents. It looks like a solid Mario Party style game. Also, the currency is likes on the internet. Do with that what you will. Spooky Eulalie looks like an adorable character action game, which I appreciate because most action games are super violent and adult. Just hoping for some improvements in the voice acting though, because even I think this sounds bad.
I've always wanted to visit New Orleans, but not like this.
We're taking the ghost out of Ghost Town, huh kid?
They made Kung Fury into a game. Seems kind of late, but not going to complain. This looks like such a weird control scheme, but Ninja Metroidvania is never a bad idea. Even though it's about Western-style superheroes, this game wears its anime influence on its sleeves. And yet, Anime XCOM still sounds like a match made in heaven.
So here's this giant enemy crab. Hop on its stomach, and you attack its weak point for massive damage.
Since I started my journey into the fighting game genre, two games have reached my ears a lot. Red Earth and Darkstalkers. This package has both, and since the only way to play the single-player focused Red Earth was track down an arcade cabinet from back in the day, I'm already pretty sure I'm getting this. Once again, Resident Evil doesn't really do anything for me, but delving into the mindscape of a character with psychic powers to deal with their mental baggage sounds like another amazing game franchise, and it lends itself to some potentially really trippy horror, so this at least looks like cool DLC. And here we are, wrapped right back around to where we started, with the game that absolutely does not need a remake. But said remake does look fine, and that feels like a fitting end for the Summer Games Fest. As a fan of indie games, I found a lot to like. Here's hoping you found something to get hyped for, and in the meantime, we can always count on Nintendo.
Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
Of all the worst things that could happen, this is the worst of things!
I really shouldn't be surprised. We've seen Nintendo's hand for the year. With Breath of the Wild and the Mario movie both being delayed, there really wasn't much else for them to talk about. And while I might be extremely annoyed to see more Xenoblade, those games are big enough it would have taken a majority of the full Nintendo Redirect regardless. So I'm not mad, just disappointed. Having said that, there were quite a few gems coming from third parties, and considering where Summer Games Fest was going to end on, I'm much happier with this than Capcom Showcase. I was never a big fan of Mega Man Battle Network, but not only is the Switch the perfect place to port this franchise to, but the music section and art gallery show this is another solid collection from Capcom, who just keep hitting these out of the park these days. Not that this game doesn't deserve to be here with the big boys, but this absolutely would have fit in the Wholesome Games Direct. Sparks of Hope didn't show off anything flashy. I'm particularly still waiting to see if we get any more cool Rabbids characters. But it did have some fundamentals changes that will be really nice to toy around with. And the management sim Train continues.
Creator Kenta in a hand-drawn adventure to save the world in his latest creation, The Legend of Right. Taking place in Kenta's notebook, this RPG spans over 200 pages, where you must draw, erase, solve puzzles, and even consult your handy calculator. Discover a new way to play every time you turn the page. RPG Time, The Legend of Right, unfolds onto Nintendo Switch August 18th. Pre-orders begin today on Nintendo eShop.
It's usually wise to be skeptical of shared universe Disney games, because outside of the obvious exception, they tend to lack ambition and polish while having a less than stellar primary gameplay loop. Dreamlight Valley looks like it's finally doing the life sim concept justice while adding some dynamic quests personalized to individual Disney characters. So I'm definitely interested. Really wondering what it means when a game backed by Disney is in early access though. Doraemon is a franchise that's a perfect fit for the farming sim genre, and while I doubt most of the Switch's Western player base will have even heard of the franchise, its family-friendly aesthetic will probably go over well regardless. It's interesting. Where Palworld took 3D open-world Pokemon in a dark and logical extremes direction, this looks like it brings Dragon Quest's wonder, whimsy, and adaptability to the scenario. I love the train, the different abilities monsters have, and the treasure hunting aspect. The only concern might be the combat, but this is probably the most exciting newly announced game from this Direct. Squaresoft made their own Harvest Moon Rune Factory equivalent, and I have to commend them for having the ambition to go so hard with a world-decaying storyline in the peaceful genre of farm sims. Even the combat looks decent. It's just been a long Summer Games Fest, and I think I'm fatigued of seeing all these farming sims.
Mission start! Yeah! Coming at ya! I'm Morgana, reigning ace of the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. And today, I'm bringing along an ultra top secret video. I hope you're ready.
All I can say is, it's about time.
And there you have it, another E3 done. Like I said after the Capcom Direct, loads of fun games to play, and bizarrely, now thanks to Nintendo's third-party Direct, I'm even excited about established IPs again. I don't know whether next year we'll be watching E3, Summer Games Fest, or have transcended beyond the need for press conferences. But until then, I'm really done this time. I've got a backlog of games I already own to play, until I thin this mess down into an affordable must-play list. So enjoy that summer sun, dream big, and if anybody happens to know how to dilate time so I can, say, finish Skyrim's main quest in an afternoon, let me know, please. Ciao.